Oh, pardon me. I had to fortify my wherewithal before I started this started this video. Welcome to 10 Good Minutes on No Crunches Required, brought to you by Belly Up Sports in association with Gozilla Media. My name is Ryan McCarthy. I'm one of the hosts of No Crunches Required, and we're going to do a special installment of No Ticket Required. And on this installment of No Ticket Required, we're going to be talking about Lady Ballers, which is a new film from the Daily Wire. But I wanted to bring in a guest because I didn't want to do this by myself. So I'm going to bring in from Rising to the Occasion. He's back. We talked with him a few months ago about the Olympic flag football. He's back with me tonight. We're going to talk about this movie, Lady Ballers. Going to bring in Josh Mahler. Josh, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Ryan.
Oh, thanks for being a willing participant in reviewing this movie with me. So uh,
Absolutely.
we're both daily. I guess you would say we're both Daily Wire fans. I've got my Leftist Tears tumbler right here, but this came about rather quickly, and I listened to a bunch of interviews with Jeremy Boring. This who is one of the founders of Daily Wire, and this came about the week of. And when you saw the trailer for this movie, what was your first impression? Was it just oh, I'm excited to see this movie, or wait, this is really happening? Like, what's going on? What was your first impression when you saw the trailer?
Well, a few months ago, because I love watching Crane and Company. I've
Yeah.
been a Booster Club member for a while now since they really joined the Daily Wire, and I even
Mhm.
knew of the J Boy show before, and I liked Jake a lot. And so there was a moment a few months back, kind of more towards the beginning of the year, maybe in the spring, something like that. I'm trying to remember exactly when it was that they kept on taking all these breaks, and I was like, okay, well, I know how the Daily Wire works. When Matt Walsh took a bunch of breaks, they came out with an amazing documentary called "What Is a Woman," and if you guys haven't seen that, that's another great one, and especially just for the fact of the purpose of these two films, and this one being kind of along the same purpose. But then, of course, they released that trailer, and I thought that was why they were taking all these breaks. I didn't expect it to be
Mhm.
this big, and so at first I thought maybe this is just kind of a goofy thing that they did, and then I saw no, it's actually releasing. So I was kind of in shock, and then I also was trying to imagine how they could get all of these Daily Wire members to fill these roles that they were supposed to be playing, especially whenever you look into Matt Walsh's role or even Jake and Blaine being brothers in that, and then you've got David Cohn. Who was a former Michigan quarterback, and then they, kind of bring him into it and kind of bring him back into the sports realm as too. So you got these sports guys in this sports related movie, and I thought that was really cool. I was excited as soon as it came out.
Yeah, I've been a Daily Wire member for quite a while now. I think since 2018 or 2019. But it when I saw the trailer, I said to myself, "Okay, it's a sports comedy. We haven't seen a whole lot of sports comedies come out in the last couple of years because I'm a big sports. We're both big sports guys, and I particularly love a good sports comedy. The Replacements is what I could think of. The, you know,
Dodgeball,
the Dodgeball,
bench
um,
warmers.
yeah, Bench Warmers, uh, The Longest Yard,
Yeah,
both
yeah, absolutely.
original and the Adam Sandler remake. Both solid comedies, both solid sports movies. But they took a big risk in doing this movie because we live we currently live in a culture, and we're not gonna, I'm not gonna disparage a whole lot certain lifestyles on this program, but we live in a culture now which is a little bit, I would say, weird, in that they're taking a big risk in kind of going countercultural with against the flow of men entering women's sports, and this movie kind of hit that third rail, especially because they're not releasing it in theaters, obviously. Although I think they should, but it's actually wise for them not to. I think it's pretty wise for them not to. But they're hitting a
Mhm.
third rail, but they're hitting it hard. But in a they're commenting on culture in a really comical way, which is I think this is the way to go.
Yeah, yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think, the way that they did this movie, and I don't want to give away any spoilers, but I think that the way that they wrote this movie kind of brings kind of these silly sports comedy movies, like
Mhm.
The Replacements was a little bit like that. I think if you look at like Dodgeball and just how outlandishly silly that one is, or even Benchwarmers, how outlandishly silly they are, that's really the kind of humor that you get out of this movie, which I thought they did a phenomenal job. And the funny thing is, I don't think they had to work too hard in writing this movie because they just took real life scenarios, and I guess that's what makes it so funny. But at the same time, I guess a little bit of alarming for those of us who aren't quite for the changes that are being made, especially when we talk about sports and the direction that they're going.
Yeah, I see it as a tribute to three particular comic styles. Monty Python. The fact that I don't know if you ever seen Monty Python and you watch the Monty Python movies or the sketches, but the main the gentleman who wrote and produced and starred in Monty Python's Flying Circus, you would see them dress up as a woman every so often. That's part of the shtick with British comedy is men dressing up as women. The other one
This
was
is
a
Mrs. Doubtfire is another one where that happens too. But
Doubtfire. Yeah, Mrs. Doubtfire. Another tribute I think was to Abrams and Zucker, kind of in the same vein as Airplane and Naked Gun, and
yeah,
those slapstick comedy. There's a lot of slap. There's a lot of slap. We're not going to give it away a whole lot of away about this movie, but if you like slapstick, if you like slapstick humor, there's a lot in this movie, and it's a tribute to Airplane. And it's a tribute to Airplane and Naked Gun and those slapstick comedies from the 80s and 90s that I grew up watching. And also, you can say it's also a tribute to Mel Brooks and his uh, and there's a lot of dry humor in this movie as well as a lot of slapstick humor. So there's a lot of interesting jokes. I have a few favorite lines, which I won't give it. Which again, I won't give it away, but there's some lines that are just if you know, you know. I'll just put it that way. If you know, you know. So I'm going to let you talk about this movie, Josh. Again, we're not going to give too much away, but what were some of the favorite aspects of this movie that kind of I would say caught your eye, caught your interest?
yeah. So I'm kind of right there with you. I've been a Daily Wire member for a while. I've just always appreciated some of the things that they said and fought for, and so I listened to like Matt Walsh and even Ben Shapiro some, and Michael Knowles and all those guys for quite some time, probably at least since 2018, I would say. Just
Yep.
shortly after getting out of high school in 15 is kind of whenever I started kind of opening my eyes to that kind of stuff and trying to listen to a lot of different guys and a lot of different people and voices. I don't think I was a member until maybe 2020, somewhere in that area. And so, yeah, I mean, it just seeing all of these members from the Daily Wire in the movie, I think that was one aspect. And especially when you look at Matt Walsh, again, knowing Matt Walsh and seeing some of the behind the scenes stuff with Matt Walsh and knowing what kind of person Matt Walsh really is. And I don't think Matt Walsh is pretending to be who he is when he's on his show. You know how he doesn't like physical touching. There was one where
Yeah.
they did the fantasy draft last year, the fantasy football draft, and I think it was Jake Crane put his hand on Matt's shoulder and he looked over at him and just dead in the eyes and said, "Don't touch me," and that's just really who Matt is. And so, knowing that much and seeing his character, I think that was Matt Walsh might be the funniest, knowing his character and who that was. So personally, I mean, even if you just watch the preview and see that's exactly who his character is in that movie, and I think that might have been my favorite part, just knowing who he is and how much he had to have hated doing that part. And I think that added even more kind of a comedy to it that was kind of unintended, I suppose.
I think you're definitely right in that regard, and I had to wonder. I'm part of a Daily Wire Discord, and shout out to my friends in that Discord. Hope you're watching. We had a private chat. I don't say a private chat, but a side chat about while we're all watching Lady Ballers and we're all commenting what's going on, all the little Easter eggs that are kind of in there. And I commented and I said, I wonder how much. I wonder if Jeremy Boring had a bucket to the side every time that Matt had to do any kind of physical touch, like a hug or an extra handshake or an extra long handshake or anything like that. Because I just had a feeling this is like the least comfortable that he is. And when you do a movie role, you want to be the opposite of what you are or what you're perceived. Because all the best villain, from my understanding, when you work in Hollywood, all the best villains, like all the best bad guys, are the complete opposite of what they are in real life. Like the movie, one of the movies I love the most, one of my favorite movies is Training Day, and how Denzel Washington is throughout the entire movie as a corrupt detective, a corrupt cop. And I guess in real life outside of Hollywood, he's one of the nicest dudes you'll ever meet. So I think for Matt Walsh to do that character, that hippy dippy character, or free loving light and love.
And he always, yeah, and he always says my lover instead of my wife or my, you
Yep.
know,
Or my
whatever she is in a
girlfriend.
relationship. My
Instead of
lover.
instead of ex-husband, it's former
Yeah.
lover.
Yeah, and even he even says something about you are my lover's former lover, and just silly things like that, where it's like for a fact that Matt Walsh would make fun of anyone that used that language. In fact, I'm sure he has at some point on his show.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think him, and I of course the Crane and Company guys too.
Oh my gosh.
I have had the privilege to meet all three of them and kind of talk to them a little bit, and so I think that was a little special to me to be able to see them on the screen in an acting role like that. That's really
Yep.
huge for them. I'm really, really proud of them and happy for them and everything they were able to accomplish too. And seeing them, they just, I thought they played perfect because you almost imagine Jake and Blaine just had to go back to their childhood to play those characters. We're just brothers in sports. Let's go and pretend like we're that way. And some of the lines, the one-liners too, that they give off in that movie is just hilarious.
From what from some of the interviews I've watched with Jeremy Boring, he mentioning that I think he said I have to I'm paraphrasing about the double check. I think he said something to the effect of a lot of these lines they were just kind of I wouldn't say they're ad libbing, but they were kind of on the side during breaks saying, "Hey, what if we do it this line this style?" Or it's just really funny, and the fact that there's that Blaine and Jake are playing heteropaternal super fecundation twins from different fathers is probably even though I don't think they're twins in real life, but
Two different brothers, or two different fathers, but at the same time.
yeah, two brothers, twins, same mom, different dads.
Yeah, that's hilarious, and
I think
I think they fit that role perfectly, and it was
yeah,
like I said, I think it was just easy for them to fit into that role.
yeah, and I mentioned the Easter eggs, but I'll give away one Easter egg. I'll give away one Easter egg. The fact that that their used card company is called Crane and Company
Yeah,
is
yeah,
just when I first saw that sign, I'm just going, "You gotta be kidding me! You gotta be kidding me!"
yeah, yeah,
It's
absolutely.
great. I think my favorite character of the entire film was David Cohn. David Cohn, and also I wouldn't say that they're playing themselves, but they're playing themselves.
Yeah,
Like they're in the film, they are Jake Crane, David Cohn, and Blaine Crane.
but
That's their
David
titles.
David will tell you that it is Davida now.
Yes, yes, I forgot Davida, Jackie, and Blair.
Yes,
Forgot
yeah,
about that.
Blair.
I forgot about that. But I think David Cohn's character was obviously. I think it was the most outlandish of all this entire basketball team. For the if the premise is in the movie, I'll tell you the plot, the audience, the plot line if you don't know about it. It's about a bunch of guys about a coach who is kind of losing at life, looking to back in the winning, get back into his winning ways, and he has a contest, and he enters one of his former basketball players into a competition where he basically becomes a woman, smokes all these women the heptathlon, and then they come up with the idea in an open what they call the global games, which is basically Olympics. You can't because you can't use the Olympics; it's a trademark. So they use global games instead, and they decide, all right, we're gonna go back to our glory days, and we're gonna get the basketball team, the state championship team from 2008, back together, and we're gonna run through. We're gonna represent the United States in the Olympics in women's basketball. So that's basically the premise of the movie. But you go from 2008 to the current day, and they're all wondering where these guys are. Where these some of these guys stayed close. Some of these guys, I mean, David Cohen went to, well, as you mentioned, he went to Michigan, and he winds up in the woods as kind of this hermit. And when you look at the scene where they find him in the woods, and they goof on him for being fat. but it's just the beard and the hair and
Yeah.
the outfit he's wearing. But it's just, but I found his character to be the most outlandish of all of them, just because of the way you see him. You see his progression from elite high school athlete to a hermit out in the woods in the middle of nowhere, Michigan. It's just hysterical.
Yeah. Well, and I was looking at the reviews too, because there's finally three different actual critic reviews for them,
Oh,
and two of them were bad, just as expected. They call it racist, which I'm not really sure. I guess I can recall maybe where
it's
they're
the
where
it's
they're
the
trying to
one
throw
joke.
that in
It's
there.
it's the one joke in the trailer. It's a stereotype of a black person,
And
but
if you there's that, and then there's the Native American reference to where
oh
Michael
yes,
Knowles is playing. But if you actually watch the movie, it's kind of making fun of how he got there, and you'll see the progression of how he
yes,
got there. And so I think that's totally a stretch. But then it also calls it sexist, transphobic, and all this stuff. So I mean, those are what I expected. But then one good
yeah,
review where it says outrageous Daily Wire comedy skewers trans sports debate, everything woke, and that's exactly what it is. It's just
it's what
so
it is.
outrageous, and like you said, outlandish. It is so crazy, and like this is just so
Mhm.
dumb. But then you look at reality and the fact that it's really happening, and that's exactly what they wanted to do. Like, hey,
Yeah,
let's just take a look at reality and just laugh at what craziness we're living in, where
hmm,
we can have men who come in and act as if they are the same as a woman and take over their sports and show how crazy that really is. And
yeah.
that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and we talked about the stunts involved in in some of the movie, where yeah, in the trailer you see Blaine choke slamming a woman who is clearly smaller than him, and you see him just slam her right to the mat and give her the old people's elbow.
Well, and even in the trailer too, Sheelix gets to be trans aged, and
Trans
somebody
age.
was. I saw a lot of comments about how crazy this is. Nobody is actually trans age, and then there was even a hate article that I can't
There
remember
it
who it
is.
was that put it out. It was some kind of LGBTQ website, and they said how absolutely absurd this is, and that they were, yeah, and they even brought up Dylan Mulvaney in their article, and that nobody would ever be trans aged, quote unquote trans age. But that is literally what Dylan Mulvaney
Yeah,
identifies as a teenage or a preteen girl. And so,
yeah,
it just goes to show like how silly reality has become. And that's really
yeah.
all the
It's
comedy's supposed to be. I don't,
yeah,
I mean, of course, I think they do have a slight, maybe dissing the outside world, those who don't agree with the way that they see things. But at the same time, it's just laughing at reality. And I think anyone can get a good laugh at reality and what it is, no matter what your stance is in politics and all of that.
exactly. People are afraid to laugh. People are afraid to make actual good comedies that kind of go against the grain
Yeah.
of what society currently is. You had that in the 70s and the 80s, leading up to the 90s and the 2000s. But now, from I would say, within the last decade or so, people are afraid to laugh. People are afraid to actually laugh at jokes and laugh at each other. We take ourselves so seriously. We take ourselves so narcissistically. And I think that's part of what this movie, part of the movie's message conveys, is that we're so wrapped up in ourselves and what we want and who we want people to accept us as who we are, that we were willing to take it too far. And there you have to laugh at it, because you can't just I mean, there's this one place, there's this one line in the movie. I won't paraphrase or try to give it away, but the one of the villains in the movie, the femme fatale character, played great job by Billy Ray Brandt. I gotta say,
Yeah.
like, I put
Yeah.
it, to say that she does a great job of playing the femme fatale. She talks about a virtue economy, and rather than rather than just people wanting to be accepted for who they are, they just try to make money off of it. And it's a lot of it. How it comes down to is just, hey, we live in this crazy world. Let's try to cash in on it. And I think that's what a lot of this comedy does. Uh, South Park. I'm a big South Park fan. They're going way against the grain. They've always gone against the grain, and they're continuing to do it unapologetically. And I think that's what the good thing about this movie is that they're unapologetic. That
Yeah.
it's unapologetic comedy. which is what I think is what we need these days. Because I love to laugh. I love to go to stand up shows. I love to watch stand up comedy and just watch comedians just work on their craft as being the truth tellers of our society. And this film does that. It tells the truth about our society. That is just it's silly and outlandish to see men absolutely grind just go up and pound these women into the ground playing basketball. But that's the reality we live in, and that nobody's really brave enough to speak out about it. And this film does that.
And that's just it too. I think the critics, those who would be against this film, they would be against it, but then you show them and say, actually watch the film and pay attention. What part of this
Yeah.
isn't happening? What part of this is actually an over exaggeration? Because in a lot of ways, it's really not. It's really not much of an exaggeration at all. There's little tweaks here and there that may be over exaggerating just slightly, but for the most part, not really. It's not an over exaggeration. So what part are they taking and being offensive about? If anything, this should just be a documentary to to some of the critics who would be against it. I think it's silly.
And the funny, and actually the funniest, one of the funniest parts is that I remember Jeremy Boring in an interview said, yeah, the Korean company guy said, let's try to make a documentary about us entering women's competitions and we'll smoke them. And that's how this movie came about. That's how this movie came about, because they wanted to, instead of making it into a documentary, which kind of seems like a documentary, they make it into a comedy that is just it's really funny. It's and a lot of it has a good message behind it. It's actually and has a very heartwarming ending.
Yeah, absolutely. It does. Yeah, and it's a very heartwarming ending. And one more piece too to kind of throw out as a heads up, when it starts to introduce Matt Walsh, you'll know the scene when it's coming. You need to pause and read the signs too, because that's another part of literally today and literally what you see on people's doorsteps and out in their front yards. I thought that was really funny too.
Yeah. So we're going to wrap things up here. Josh, why don't you go ahead and tell the people where they can find you, where they can find your podcast, and also your store, your great store with a lot of golf gear and even coffee.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, Rising to the Occasion, that's our podcast, sports podcast, where we just talk all sports. When it's college football season, it seems like we're consumed with college football. So make sure to go and check us out on YouTube. We post on there quite often. So you can find us on YouTube. If you just go to rising2.com, you can find everything we do there. That's risingto.com. And then Mahler Bros Golf is something that I started up a while back now. And it's just been a lot of fun and a really fun process to go through. And we sell all kinds of great polos and lots of different designs and even T-shirts and hats. And we've even got more and more that we just keep on adding to it. And then, like Ryan said too, we've even gotten kind of dabbed into the world of coffee. I'm a huge coffee drinker, love coffee. And so we started the first ever that we know of golf themed coffee. So a ton of golf themed coffee all over the shop over there. That's mahlerbros.com, mahlerbros.com. But Brian, thanks very much for having me on and even giving me an extra little plug there too.
Hey, my pleasure having you on, Josh. I really appreciate it. And thanks for watching 10 Good Minutes. No credentials required. We'll talk to you next time.